The Barr family welcomed Charlene into their home, prepared to meet the physical needs of her cystic fibrosis. But as she grew into her teens, emotional pains and hurts surfaced that would affect the family to even a greater extent.
There was dark days in our household. Charlene made it very difficult for us to love her at times, things she said, things she did to us. Especially, I think David probably found it the hardest was when she would have hurt me or Bethany and Serena being the youngest girls in the house. David found that really hard.
It was almost just like there was a switch sometimes where she would be saying the nicest things, completely at peace, joining with everyone, and then it was just like a switch flew behind her eyes, like somebody else was there. It wasn't Charlene anymore. Her eyes would just go dark and the most incredibly painful barbs would fly from her mouth.
Charlene was dealing with a condition called attachment disorder, which was linked very, very closely to that first year of life, where there wasn't one person who was caring for her. She would be violent at times. She was small because of her illness, and yet, you know, you could see just the anger within her.
I remember where Mum and Dad were in the kitchen nearly in tears after what Charlene had been saying, and I went into her room and she was crying. Charlene was just crying at that point, and she looked up and I said, "Hi Charlene, it's me, it's Dave." And she said, she was crying, she said, "Dave, I don't know why I say these things, I don't know why, I don't mean them, I don't know what I'm saying, why do I do these things? Surely you're all going to give up on me."
Because her mum had rejected her at birth, she felt it was easier to push us away so that we couldn't reject her as well. The other 5 of us couldn't comprehend that, but we tried to gather around her and love her because she was our sister. But Charlene often would have pushed us away, and that was very difficult to take, because how do you love someone if they don't want to receive the love?
The fact is, you loved her dearly, but you saw the pain she was inflicting on everyone around her. And it wasn't just verbal, sometimes it was physical things. It was really, there was 3 or 4 years, it was horrendous as Charlene wrestled with her identity.
You know, so many times, you know, as a family where we really cried out to God and prayed together, just because Charlene just pushed us away time and time again and had so many battles to face inwardly, and that she struggled as well to surrender to God. She had given her life as a child to God, but she definitely really struggled in those few years.
While Charlene was stretching the family's limits, God was preparing them all for a bigger purpose.
I had been involved in a non-profit organisation, and I had an invitation to go to Uganda and to adapt the programmes into the context of HIV prevention. I was able to take David, I was able to take Rebecca on some of the trips, and it was all around primary and secondary schools. But I so much wanted to take the whole family, and I kept saying to Janice, we will have to go out to Uganda as a family.
At this time, alongside it, just shows how God knits everything together. There was a knock on the door, and a gentleman who we wouldn't have been friends with, it was just more an acquaintance through the hockey actually, knocked on the door and said, handed Mum an envelope. He said, "I've been praying," and no one knew that our family wanted to go to Uganda. This is the amazing thing about it. But he handed the cheque to Mum and he says, "I've been praying and I feel God wants you as a family to go to Uganda."
Great God, and He holds us in His hands. Our God is
Going to Uganda changed all of us, but in particular it changed Charlene.
Watching her there, she was taking part in things. Her relationship with the kids was incredible. She met kids who were orphans, who I think in some ways she could identify with the difficulties of them having lost parents or being sometimes abandoned by parents and so on, and she bonded with them incredibly. Watching her from a distance, seeing her eyes light up with some of the kids, seeing their eyes light up, and just her laughing with them, she was brilliant there, absolutely brilliant there.
The whole processes of whenever Charlene came home, and it started to dawn on her, you know, if I was born here, I wouldn't have survived. People, you know, kids have to walk miles to get to school. And it was almost like after Uganda, the light came on for Charlene and she realised all these children are orphans and they're not acting like the way I am. Many of these children are ill and they're not acting the way I am. And it was just like her whole perspective of life changed. God did bring healing to Charlene, and you know, as we often said, we always wanted physical healing for Charlene, and we believed that God could completely heal her body of cystic fibrosis. However, if there was a choice, as we always say, if there was a choice between physical healing and emotional healing and where she was right with God, we would always choose the emotional healing, and that is way more important and way more eternal in the grand scheme of things. So yeah.
On the heels of Charlene's emotional healing comes some devastating news that takes the family's purpose and influence into an unexpected place.